What is up, ladies and gentle folks? Stephman here, and today I'm bringing you the Tyria Times again because we had some special news last night during the dev live stream. There was a lot of information released, so what I've done is I've took the first part, which was 20 minutes, and I've cut it into just over 10 minutes of video in chunks. So we're going to go through that, and because there's so much of it, I'll not comment on everything, but I'll comment on the things that I like, that sound good to me or don't. So let's get started with the first video clip.
So one of the big topics that we've been getting is like, what is our kind of long-term focus for PvE, and how are we going to bring life back to some of the maps that have kind of become more sparsely populated as players have continued to play. And so we've actually been working on a couple things. One of them is we're coming up with a new achievement system that's going to be playing into the dailies and the monthlies that you've already seen, and adding new styles of gameplay there, new achievements that encourage cooperative play, things like rezzing other players and rallying and things that will help players become a little bit better at understanding the concepts of our game. At the same time, this will allow us to allow players to kind of filter back to some of the other zones, and we will, like you saw in the past month where we did the monthly achievement that required players to kind of go find some of the jumping puzzles. This is one of our ways to kind of encourage players to kind of go see some of the content that maybe they missed or they weren't necessarily finding earlier on. Also associated with this is that we're going to be doing some content with the guilds, because we realize, you know, when you build up your guild, you build up your community, that you want to go do stuff with them. And so we're actually going to be introducing 4 or 5 different styles of content that actually going to be showing up in the world that guilds can go in there, help kick off, and then build excitement about what's going on in the map, and actually be able to pull other players into it as well. So it just it allows us to kind of layer on a bunch of these different tools that we've had, and kind of build the content and make it that much more exciting for everyone. But you know, what is the content without having some sort of end goal associated with this? And so part of this is going to be, we're actually going to be building up adding onto the tiers that are in the guild, like the economy, the war, and stuff like that. So we're going to be building on layers onto that and adding in additional rewards for that as well. So there'll be some kind of cool stuff for guild members to show off the fact that they're part of these guilds. But then going back to the achievement system, like we're adding over 100 rewards that are going to be tied into this, that basically are going to just allow players to kind of show off some of the cool things that they've done. And then this is really just the start. Like the framework is really going to be rolling out in the next couple months, and then from there we're just going to be continually adding new and exciting things to this as well. Oh, sorry, there is actually one other big thing. This is also going to be, with this new achievement system and reward structure, is also where you're going to see some of the ascended items coming into play outside of the Fractals of the Mist. We talked about early on that we wanted to make sure that players could get rewarded for doing things that they wanted to do and playing the game they wanted. This is one of those ways that we're going to be able to do it. So by adding in the structure that allows players to kind of participate in these achievements and go and participate in additional things in the open world, it's going to allow them to have access to some of the ascended items as well.
So that was the first clip. That was one of the longest ones. So let's take the main points from that. We've got guild content, we've got a new way for the achievement system to be used, we've got ascended gear coming outside of Fractals. Now that's all good stuff in my opinion. I don't see how you can classify it as bad stuff. I mean, as long as they're like with the guild system, as long as the content isn't a poor excuse for content, I can't see anything wrong with that. So all thumbs up. So let's go on to the next clip.
One of the major focuses of questions has been kind of our philosophy on the dungeons and what's going on with there. We are actually rolling out a multiple phase kind of implementation of changes for the dungeons. The first one that we're going to be seeing in this first build is actually we are making changes so that we're removing the idea of res rushing. For those of you who aren't familiar with this term, it's the concept that we make an encounter so challenging, so difficult, that the only way you beat him is that you basically fight him, you get downed, you res at the nearest res shrine and make the trek all the way back, while someone is basically dancing around or kiting the boss, so that you can basically have your people keep coming in and cycling in on the boss. So the first round changes that will actually be going into the first build is where we've added some changes to the code to make it so dungeons and fractals are more aligned. So you will no longer be able to res while you're while someone in your party is in combat in the dungeons. But because this is kind of a drastic change, we also went back and kind of lightened up some of the encounters that were more challenging, that forced basically people into this mentality. Like I said, this is just phase 1, because phase 2 we actually want to go back and we're going to be taking a look at some of the encounters that we want to make more interesting, that we want to make more challenging, and then at that point we're actually going to kind of increase the difficulty back to where we think the explorable versions of the dungeons needs to be. But at the same time, again, going with content versus reward, we'll also be rolling out some additional rewards in that structure as well.
So that's the next clip talking about dungeons and the dungeon revamp that's coming up. Later on they state that they'll be doing it in 3 phases, but we'll get to that later. So what are they doing? So first of all, they're stopping res rushing by, if a member of your party is in combat, you will not be able to revive. Somebody else can still revive you from my understanding, but you can't return to the waypoint and run back in again, so you can't res rush, which is a good change as long as they get the second part right, which is balance. Some of the encounters are ridiculously hard if you are unlucky. I mean, I hate pugging at the minute in dungeons because some of the encounters are just ridiculous if you're not on voice comms and stuff to help each other out, and if you're with people that are unknown. So it'll all depend on this sort of balance phase that they're going to go through after they've implemented the first change, to see whether it's going to be a good change or a bad change. And then obviously, like you stated in the video, the second pass will be bringing stuff back up to an acceptable difficulty level. So it sounds to me as though the first pass they're going to introduce this system where you can't res yourself during combat, and they will also, as part of that first pass, be nerfing all the dungeons, and then they'll be gathering stats over probably the course of a month or something like that to see just how difficult the dungeons are at that stage, and then bringing the explorable modes back up again. So trying to put it back in line with the difficulty we have now, but without the need for res rushing, which is, it sounds good. It's the implementation that will decide it though. So let's go on to the next video.
We've talked briefly about kind of adding a support system for people trying to find other players, looking for group mechanics, so to speak. We are working right now on making a very kind of ubiquitous system that allows us to, not just for like dungeons, not just for open world, not just for world versus world, but allow us to have a system that encompasses across the board, and really allow players to be able to find other players who want to do similar activities. So this is just kind of, that one's a little bit further off, so you'll have to stay tuned for more information on that one. But
looking for group tools, what can I say? We need looking for group tools, and it sounds to me as though they're going to deliver it. It doesn't sound like it's going to be the standard looking for group tool, as in looking for group for this quest, looking for group for this dungeon. It sounds like they're encompassing more into it. So maybe they're going to have like looking for exploration group, or so you can get other people in your party to go around and try and get your 100% world completion and stuff like that, but that's just speculation. But in my opinion, looking for group tool is great, because at the minute we're having to use external websites and things like that to find groups all within your guild, and if you haven't got a very large guild, it can be very difficult to get a group. So next video.
So some questions a lot about the upcoming updates. So as we've talked about before, we're still working on the custom arenas, which is, again, it's really important for us to get those done, because it's going to do so many things for the game. But we have to make sure that those are bug-free when we put them out to you guys, which is why we're being patient with those and just making sure that they're good to go when they come out. We're also we've talked about leaderboards before, which is also something that we're working on, which we're really excited for you guys to be able to use, because it's going to be able to give you the ability to see your progress against other people. We're also on the back end, we're also working on a lot of the new player experience for PvP and stuff like that. We want to make sure that the new players feel like they can understand the game and they're getting the ability to play the game at their level, which is where the matchmaking is going to come in. And that's going to be huge, because it kind of puts people into different buckets where you can play with people of your skill level. So that's something we're also really excited about.
So there we've got PvP tour, we've got matchmaking, we've got leaderboards, we've got new player experience. So let's go into a bit of that. Esports was what Guild Wars 2 wanted to be involved in. Right from the start, it says we want to do esports, we want to do it well. But I'm sort of thinking now, is it too little too late? Because with player mentality, there's a lot of hype around the launch of the game. And if you're saying esports at the start of the game, and you get all these competitive teams in and stuff like that, so at the start there was hundreds of competitive esports teams playing Guild Wars because it was supposed to be the next esports big thing. But they didn't have the tools to support those teams. Now, a lot of those teams have left and gone to other games. There's one or two still around, but is it too little too late? I'm not sure, we'll have to wait and see. Now, next thing, matchmaking. Oh, yes. At the minute, it is annoying as hell because I don't do a lot of structures. I did on launch, I did a fair bit of structured PvP on launch, but I haven't done any recently. And the main reason is because I took a bit of a break from the game. I was out for probably a month and a half. And during that time, obviously, everybody else was still playing, everybody else was getting better and better at structured PvP. I come back and I join a matchmaking queue, I get thrown into PvP, and there I am on my character that's at the bunny rabbit level of structured PvP fighting people at the dragon level and shit. It's crazy, there's just no balance there at the minute, and new players come to the game. Oh, I'll check out structured PvP, they're going for the first match and they're fighting like people at dragon level. It's absolutely crazy. Why this was not thought about at the start, I have no idea. So hopefully that will bring more people back to the game. But as for the esports thing, I don't know whether it's too little too late. Next video.
So we're going to be doing a one-on-one version kind of our tournament system. So right now the way that the tournament system works is, be it free or paid tournaments, is you basically have 3 different rounds. If you get through all the rounds, it's a single elimination. If you get through all the rounds, then you're basically the winner for that tournament, and you are divvied out rewards accordingly based off your placement in that tournament. But what we're going to try now, something we've wanted to try, and the fans have been asking for it as well, is we're going to try a one-on-one system instead of the 8 teams needed for a single tournament. You'll be seeing more details about this. I'll be putting up forum posts. We'll be writing a blog about this. But basically, it'll mean that it'll be 1 team versus 1 team. We're going to bring down. It will be paid, so you will need tickets, but we're going to bring down the barrier to entry in that. So we'll be bringing down the cost that's required to get into those. We'll also be bringing down the rewards accordingly, because you only have 1 team to beat before you get rewarded, instead of the normal 3 rounds you would have to get through to get to the final position in the normal tournaments. That stuff's coming up pretty quickly. We'll be talking about that in a blog pretty soon here. So watch for that. That'll have all the details on how you get.
So that's another PvP focus change, and what can you say bad about it? More options is better. If it's, for me especially, if I've only got 20 minutes at one point in time, I can't queue up for a 3-round structured PvP tournament because of matchmaking times and all that sort of stuff. So if I've got the option to just go in and hammer out 1 round in, say, 20 minutes, I can get in, do my thing, log out and go back to whatever I need to do. So one thing he didn't mention there was the time commitment when he was talking about bringing down the barrier for entry. And if you're bringing down the time commitment, again, it lowers the barrier for entry. More people who just want to drop in for a quick session can do. So that's all good in my opinion. As for it being paid, I've not really got a big problem with it, to be honest. It'll all depend on how much they charge for the tickets, but I've not got a massive problem with that. So let's go on to the next one.
Can you tell us about what the upcoming level update is going to add or change? I can and I can't. There's lots of things, obviously, that we don't want to say until we have them 100% definitely nailed down. I can tell you that we're looking into progression. We're trying to make sure that World v World gives you some kind of character development, as well as rewards you for all the time you've spent out there. Through that, we're looking at the goal is to basically, I want to try and give as many details as I can, but it's like I can't. Yeah, the goal is progression. The goal is rewards. We want to make sure that it's valuable and encourages players to go out there more so than they already are.
Okay, so that was a little short clip about WVW. That was pretty much all he mentioned in that segment, and it went on for like 2 or 3 minutes. So they're bringing in more rewards and more progression to World versus World, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion. If there's more rewards, more way to earn rewards, then people have got more options, and more, like I said before, more options is never a bad thing in my opinion. So that's all good with me. So let's go on to the next video. Oh, before I do, it was mentioned briefly in the second part of the dev chat about how the progression is going to work in PvP. So look out for the next video where I'll go into a bit of that. This is just the first half of the dev chat. It was 20 minutes and I've had it down to 11 minutes 10 just for easier consumption while still keeping all the relevant information in there. So let's go on to the next video.
Another issue that we're running into, I suppose, I'll just move down the line. We recently tested culling. We've done a few different tests with that. We've actually had one go to live and then we've reverted it as the test claimed. Everything went really well there. We're doing great things with culling. We still have quite a bit more to do. We're still running a lot of different tests to make sure that our data usage is staying within the limits, that all the clients can handle it. There's a lot of different knobs that we have to tweak there to make sure that everything rolls out as it should.
Okay, so that was the next one, and it was talking a little bit about culling, which is a massive issue in World vs. World. But he's pretty much said, look, we're working on it, and that's all they can do, really. You can't really pull a fix out of your back pocket. It's something that takes time. It's a shame it's there, but there's not a lot we as the player base can do about it. So as long as they're working on it, I am happy.
When we look at these things, we feel like a lot of them are too strong. And what we're seeing is that in World v. World, a lot of people are gaming the system with the AoE. And one thing that I don't know that everybody knows is that the actual max targets for a lot of the siege weapons is actually 50 targets instead of the lower number of 5 for a lot of the AoE skills. But the AoE skills themselves, the damage ratios, we feel like can be tweaked a little bit to get more play, such that they're not as strong when juxtaposed with the single target damage skills. We feel like right now AoE in World v. World as well as in PvP, it probably is a little bit too strong across the board. So we'll be doing a major update to all the AoE skills to kind of bring them back in line a little bit, which then lets those classes who are really strong at killing a single target, they kind of stand out a little bit more. Because right now, and especially in dungeons too, if you have a lot of AoE, you can get through encounters just by spamming AoE, which is not something that we obviously want. So that's something that you guys have mentioned, and we definitely know it's an issue, so we'll be looking at that. Players would appreciate more insight into the philosophy behind our weapons and the systems for the skill balance. So the biggest thing that we're thinking here is we want to have every single class feel like it has multiple options at all times for a given situation. This doesn't mean that every single class has the exact same boons or conditions or the same amount of AoE for a situation, but we want them to be able to deal with a problem in their own way. And because of this, we try to keep purity of purpose for skills and abilities. For instance, stealth is something that only the Mesmer and the Thief can have. Not everybody can have stealth, but everybody should have a defensive mechanism like that they can use if they don't have stealth. We want to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity for all their builds. Now what this means is we want to make sure that all the weaker traits, the weaker weapons for all the classes are brought up to be on par with some of the strongest traits and the strongest setups, the strongest builds, the strongest weapons for all the classes. And that's one of our major balance issues right now is the AoE combined with getting rid of all the bugs, bringing up all the weak weapons and all the weak traits.
Okay, so more balance to it. Balance is something that MMOs are constantly working on. There's no quick fix for balance. So as long as they're working on it, I've not got a lot to say. But it gets a little bit more interesting in the next part when they're talking about builds.
But yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking right now is we want to bring up that balance to every single class. Right now, for a lot of the classes in PvP, PvE, and World v. World, a lot of them might have 1 or 2 viable builds, but some of them they're just really deep. Some classes actually have 4, 5, 6 viable builds. So we want to make sure that the classes that don't have as many viable builds are brought up to be on par with the other classes.
Okay, so that's what I meant about builds. So some classes feel like they are hooked into running 1 or 2 builds or not being effective, and that's a problem in a game like Guild Wars 2 where characters are supposed to feel a little bit individual. There's supposed to be hundreds of builds for each class, so that's a good thing to hear. Next video.
Also planning to have more PvP specific armor skins and stuff like that, things that are in PvE maybe that are not available in PvP. We're trying to introduce more of those things to the PvP community so that they can benefit from those things as well. So we'll be adding some more of those skins and things like that to PvP that are you can also get those in World v. World as well.
Big thing for World v. World too.
Sure.
Is just making sure that we get all of our armor and rewards in there too.
So more rewards are never a bad thing. So That's as far as I'm concerned. That was the first part of the dev chat. There'll be another video as soon as the second part has been uploaded and I can break it down. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Tyria Times with Stefman. I hope you have a good day.